And we're live. Welcome to the Pregnancy Advantage Q&A with Dr. Deborah Shapiro and myself. I am Jean Schumacher. We've had people already send us questions ahead of time, so I'm very excited. So Dr. Shapiro, are you ready to jump in here?
Absolutely. Hi, Jean. Hi, everyone. Welcome.
All right. Well, all right. So first question up on deck is, how can my husband improve his semen analysis numbers? Gosh, those guys they hate doing that. They hate having their semen analyzed, hate going in and taking it in a little cup and giving it to anyway. But how can we get them better?
It's true. And I have some tips about how to actually have a semen analysis be done without causing all that stress. It doesn't even have to be your husband. It can be anyone that you're trying to have a baby with of the male gender. So this is a very important question because semen analysis numbers, or the sperm counts, have actually been declining over the past decades. And there are a few factors that are involved. So one that's very, very important is the saturated fat in your diet. And what's interesting is we've been learning about the effect of saturated fat on the fetus as well, and on fertility, but we're really learning about saturated fat and semen analysis. And you can actually drop sperm counts by as much as 65% if you're eating a high-fat diet. And a high-fat diet is sort of the typical American diet. I mean, I ate this way: eggs and cheese for breakfast, a tuna fish sandwich for lunch, and burgers and fries for dinner. And I mean, that was just an average day, and not even counting all the desserts and the milkshakes and blah, blah, blah. So I'm hoping a lot of people are switching away from that, but I think there's still, when you look at the number of saturated fat grams in some fast foods, I mean, it's overwhelming. So just one meal could sort of really push you over the edge. So decreasing saturated fat. So eating a whole plant food diet, which is naturally low in saturated fat, is going to be much better for sperm. The other thing is that the sperm, they're being made all the time. It's not like your eggs, which you have a certain number when you're born, and then they only a certain number left by the time you start ovulating at 13 when you start going through menarche. But the sperm are being made all the time, but they're still very delicate, and their DNA is very sensitive to radiation. And there's some incredible new sources of radiation that are very close to the scrotum. For example, the laptops. I mean, just think about it. A laptop you can have on your lap. I'm sort of guilty of that too. I sometimes have it on my lap. But when a man is trying to get somebody pregnant, when they want that sperm to be optimal, you do not want to have the laptop on the lap. You also do not want to have your cell phone in your pocket, in your front pocket. And what's interesting about the sort of the synergy between the radiation from the cell phone and also the metal in keys, it works synergistically, and there's actually more damage to the DNA of the sperm if you have both your keys and your cell phone in your pocket. So, and this is even true if a woman is trying to get pregnant and she believes that she might have had intercourse at the right time the night before, and so the sperm might be inside of her. Also, don't put your cell phone in your front pocket. Don't even have it close to your ovaries at that point. Just really have it away. And when we're talking about the kind of stress and the DNA and the kind of stress that can be on the DNA in the sperm, you also want to think about increasing your antioxidants so that there can be DNA repair, right? And so less oxidative stress. So decrease saturated fat, increase your high antioxidant containing foods, which is also part of a whole plant food diet, and keep things that keep your scrotum too hot away. So there's radiation damage, but there's also just heat damage.
Yeah.
So there actually is a condition that a man can have where there's a plexus of veins over the scrotum. It's called a varicocele. And a varicocele will not get better by changing your diet, unfortunately. So if the sperm count is low and they determine that there is a varicocele, that'll actually need to be clipped. But what can act similarly is anything that keeps the scrotum too warm. The reason that we have the testicles in the scrotum is that they can be held away from the body a little bit cooler, because they need to be kept cooler. So that's why people talk about not wearing the tight underwear, but wearing looser underwear, and not going in hot tubs, for example, to keep not going in saunas, because it really can make a difference. Even, the tight bicycle shorts and bicycling for a long time and all of that can have an effect on the sperm. And lastly, there are these xenoestrogens. There are man-made chemicals, endocrine disrupting chemicals that can have a negative effect on sperm production. Things like BPA, which is the lining of
Oh,
cans and in those
yep.
receipts. Phthalates, parabens, dioxins, especially dioxins, persistent organic pollutants that move up the food chain and get sort of concentrated in bigger animals like larger fish that we eat. So, and PFAS. So you can actually, I think this is your area of expertise, so you can talk about some of these chemicals and where a man or a woman might find them in the environment. Might be interesting. I always need to hear that again.
Well, I'm just going to jump in about talking about we went back to the radiation, and that's something that is huge. So if you're going to be, just a simple tip, if you're going to be putting your cell phone in your pocket, shut it off. Oh my God, I might miss a call. Okay, well, make the phone work for you and not you work for the phone. So if you're going to put it in your pocket, shut it off. It just takes a minute, 30 seconds for it to boot back up again, and then you can get all your new messages, whatever. But that radiation, putting it right next to your testicles, not a good idea because it can change them, their DNA. And that is very fragile. So you want the best possible DNA for your child. That's the blueprint. That's what's going to determine your life. You don't want any of those changes happening. So that's number one. Number two is if you're going to put your laptop on your lap, get a shield. They have different shields out there that can block it. So it's not a good idea ever to put it on your body, to put your laptop on your lap. But if you have to, for whatever reason, make sure you put a shield on there. It's pretty amazing. The shields are not, they're a little pricey, but it's worth it for your health. So, and then just going back to some of the chemicals, a lot of these chemicals are endocrine disruptors. So that's going to have a huge impact on your body, and if you're trying to get pregnant for either the woman or the male, you want to make sure that you're getting these toxins out of your body. And that's a lot of the things that we talk about in our program. So we talk about how to get rid of these toxins because, if you stop and look at your shampoo or deodorant, toothpaste, you could easily be being exposed to 20, 30, 40 different chemicals just with shampoo, deodorant, toothpaste. And a conditioner, throw that in there. You're talking 50 or 60 now, because on average, if you look at a bottle of shampoo, you're talking about 10 or more ingredients. And a lot of times, here's something that I find absolutely annoying, is that they will take these two chemicals, okay, that are things that are going to react together, and then the products are what are formed. So they don't have to tell you what the products are going to form. They don't have to tell you that. So one of the things is when these two chemicals come together, inside the personal care product, they create a product called 1,4-dioxane, which is so toxic to the environment that they measure it in parts per billion, not parts per million, parts per billion. That's how sensitive, and that's how much they don't want it. But they don't tell you that these two chemicals that they're putting into it as reactants that are going to be in there, they're going to be reacting together, and they're going to create this product called 1,4-dioxane, which they don't list on the ingredients. That just drives me absolutely bonkers.
Wow.
Because there is some of these chemicals in here that you don't realize you're being exposed to, because they don't have to list it. They don't have to list anything. There's absolutely no regulation, zero regulation, okay, about these products. Over in Europe, they have what's called the precautionary principle, which you have to prove that it's not going to be toxic to humans before they'll allow you to start selling it. But here in the United States, it's like the wild, wild west. So toxins, definitely important, especially for that semen analysis. You don't want things that are going to be changing your DNA. And some of these chemicals are pretty nasty, and they're part of your body. Anything you put on your body in 26 seconds is in your bloodstream. Anything. So,
right.
All right.
I was going to give a little tip about a less painful type of semen analysis testing for your spouse.
Okay.
So if your spouse is advised to give a semen analysis, would be one of the first tests that are done on a couple that is suffering from some infertility. And I would not recommend that your spouse just go to a lab and just produce the sample on his own. I would suggest that you help your spouse to produce the sample in any way you can without adding any kind of liquid or saliva or other agent, any sort of lubricating agent. But you could help him in any way you can to ejaculate cleanly into a cup. And then you tell him ahead of time that you will bring the cup to the lab. And you just keep it warm under your arm and just bring it to the lab very quickly, because they start looking at it after an hour after it's been produced. So it's very important, because they've actually done some studies that using a condom, that when men are, and they've looked at the quality of the sperm, when men are under pressure to perform, like when you call them up and say, I'm ovulating, come home now, that sperm is not going to be as happy as the sperm that are just ejaculated when the man's having a good time. So just tell them ahead of time that you will take care of bringing the sperm to the lab, because I think men can feel a little sheepish about that.
I mean, here's my stuff, I get it.
I mean, some might be proud, but I think it causes some anxiety, and anxiety, as we know, is not good for anything. So,
right.
Yeah.
Well, especially trying to get pregnant,
Right. Exactly.
That is.
Right.
Okay. Another question that was sent in is Pilates better exercise to prepare for pregnancy or yoga? And are there any other types of exercise recommended? What are your thoughts?
Okay. So exercise is very important, and aerobic exercise is very important for improving your fertility. So whether it's jogging slowly or just walking briskly, or if you like bicycling or swimming or hula hooping or playing basketball, whatever you like to do, you can do. You can be on a treadmill, you can do whatever you want to do, but aerobic exercise is excellent, and any kind of exercise is also always good for you. Pilates is fascinating. It's an amazing exercise for strengthening your core, right? Strengthening. And what I found in my practice is that when women, and I've had patients who were both Pilates instructors and also women who were doing Pilates through the pregnancy, they did not have vaginal deliveries. Their pelvic floor was like steel. I remember one in particular. She was an instructor, and she got to complete dilation. But when I felt inside to see if the baby was coming down, that all that musculature in the pelvic floor was like iron. It was amazing. Now, maybe she'll have less trouble with leakage of urine later on. She probably will. But if you want to have an easier, unmedicated, natural birth, then I would definitely go for something not Pilates, but yoga, which focuses more on endurance, but also on flexibility. And you need to be flexible. You need your muscles to be more flexible to have a vaginal birth. You can always do Pilates after you're done with childbearing, and that would be wonderful. There is something called pregnancy Pilates that I just heard about. I don't know that much about it, and maybe they have made some adjustments. But in general, I would use a pregnancy safe yoga practice when you're trying to get pregnant or when you are pregnant. And I would leave Pilates for after you've done with childbearing. Have you had any experience with Pilates or yoga?
Not Pilates. No, but yoga, yes. And there is a couple of things that I recommend. One is Kathy Smith. I've had a love-hate relationship with her for, 25 years. She does a lot of aerobic, exercises and stuff like that. And then when she had her children, she did exercises in special sessions just for pregnant women, because she looks amazing. I mean, the woman, oh my God, she's like as fit as you can, she does several instruction classes a day, and she's recorded these amazing videos, and I want to be her when I grow up. But also there is a website called Do Yoga With Me. And I love this website because you can sort the classes. There's so many on there. You can sort it by time, like you only have 20 minutes. Okay, well, here's all the classes for 20 minutes. You can sort it by levels, if you're just starting out, beginner, intermediate, advanced. And there's all different types of yoga, So, and then the instructors. So one of my favorite instructors, her name is Fiji McAlpine. And I just love her delivery and how she walks you through. And I think she just does a fabulous job. But most of the stuff on there is free. So I like free. So doyogawithme.com, I believe it is. And you can sign up and become a member, and they have more classes, that you can buy that are only offered to their, whatever, members, whatever. But they have a lot of stuff on there that is free. So
there's one caveat about yoga, and that is, and we do talk a lot about exercise and yoga in the Pregnancy Advantage. But there are some types of yoga that are practiced in a heated room, and that we do not recommend when you're pregnant. You should not do any kind of heated yoga. And it's possible even for men, even when we were talking about the sperm, that type of yoga, the hot yoga, might even be damaging to sperm as well, to the numbers, so to how they move. So I would do that when you're not thinking about getting pregnant and not pregnancy itself.
Okay. I've never been a fan of that hot yoga. I'm sorry.
I did like it. Oh, I liked it. It was amazing. It was amazing.
No, because I sweat, and then you start sweating all over the mat.
Everybody
and
is.
then,
I know.
I know, and it's disgusting. You start sweating, and then you're trying to move, and you're slipping all over.
But when you finish, you do feel like you accomplished something.
I'm not arguing, but I can get that. I get that same feeling just doing it without the heated. I felt like gross afterwards. All right. Next question that came from another person who sent it in ahead of time. And if you have questions, you can post it now below underneath, or you can, in the Pregnancy Advantage, you can post the comments to us. We'll include it in the next Q&A. We're going to meet every Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 9 o'clock Pacific. So, and we also have a gift for you guys. So Deborah and I have put together a document that we created about the top 3 things that you need to be doing to get your body pregnant ready, because that's what we're about. Is we want to educate you. We want to help. Dr. Shapiro is from the point of catching them when they come out of the chute. And I'm from the perspective of seeing the kids in the classroom. As a teacher of 35 years, I see our children have changed dramatically. There's so many different learning issues and problems that the children are facing, and it's the food and the environmental toxins that we're being exposed to. So our objective is we want to get you pregnant ready in the best possible way. So if you go to pregnantready.net or pregnantready.com, either one, pregnantready.net, you're going to get the top 3 things for free. Well, I like free. Top 3 things that you should be working on to get your body pregnant ready. So, all right. Dr. Deborah, you ready for another one?
Yes.
Can you explain how what happens to me during my pregnancy could affect the health of my grandchild?
Excellent. So this person has been paying attention to the news, because I've actually seen some. I've been seeing some wonderful YouTube videos from scientists who have been talking about epigenetics. But this is this idea of epigenetics, which we only knew about in the late part of the 20th century, like 1990s. We started studying this, that where we have a set genome, your ATCG base pairs in your DNA are set, the genes are there, but the regulation of the genes, the upregulation or the downregulation of genomic expression, that is affected by your environment. And we had examples of this. For example, the Dutch potato famine, when the Nazis came into Holland and they removed all the meat and the people were starving. The children that were born after that were much more likely to have weight issues and to be obese, because their genes for conserving fat were really were upregulated. And there's some other examples which I would like to talk about. But we've been living in this. Basically, it's sort of an experiment of toxins. You mentioned it before about terrible toxic materials and dioxins. But when you test, they do tests on chemicals, right? With these lethal dose 50, the LD50, and we know about each individual chemical, what the toxic dose might be. But what I don't think happens is that people are testing 70 chemicals interacting together in your body, right? Or 800 different chemicals interacting together in your body. But they're, right? So some of them we do act synergistically. But basically, we have been living in the big experiment of living with chemicals, with plastics and microplastics and persistent organic pollutants and pesticides and these endocrine disrupting chemicals for the last, since 1950s, since after World War II, actually, last 70 years. And I think what we've been seeing, when you think about it, is people getting heavier and heavier, and partly it's the way food is is marketed and the way food is produced and the way, the government has subsidies for the wrong kinds of food, and it is bigger issues, but it is about the food and it is about the chemicals. And, to some extent also our lifestyle, being sedentary, and all of this comes together. And the amazing thing is it has an effect on your DNA. I don't know. I don't think people realize that. They just think, well, I'm getting heavier, or well, I'm developing heart disease. But it's more than that. It's more than that. It's affecting your DNA. And if it affects your DNA before you conceive, not only is it affecting your DNA, but it's affecting the DNA in your gonads. It's affecting your DNA in the scrotum, in the testicles. It's affecting the DNA, even more importantly, because they're being made all the time and they could probably change more readily. If you have epigenetic changes going on while you're pregnant, then those changes will also be taking place in the ovaries or the testicles of your unborn child. And that's how these changes, what happens to you, can affect your grandchildren. And it's profound to think about, because we need to change this completely from this sort of degradation where people are just getting kind of heavier and heavier and maybe more mentally ill and not as bright, to just change it completely. We need to make the epigenetic changes that will make people healthier, make our children healthier, make our grandchildren healthier. There's a reason why this generation is not living as long as the one before it. And I think a lot of it can be, some of it is just what we're doing now, what we're eating now. But a lot of it, I think, is really not in our control, because it was set before with our parents and grandparents.
Well, talk about that study that was in Canada, the lockdown.
Yes. Project Ice Storm. So So in 1998, there was a tremendous winter storm in Quebec, and it was minus 20 degrees centigrade for 40 days. And there was tremendous social upheaval. People were stuck outside in the deep cold, and tremendous social stress. And researchers decided this would be an interesting experiment to actually follow the women who were pregnant during that time. And they could measure, because they asked them questions, they have all kinds of questionnaires, and they measured the amount of stress that they were under, that they endured. The actual stress versus the perceived stress. Because there is a difference. If you're actually in the cold, you've lost your heat for many, many days, or you're just stressed because it's more difficult and it's just more difficult. So there's perceived stress and actual stress. But still, so they've been following these children for 20 years. And you can look at Project Ice Storm online and see all the different studies that have come out of it. But what was amazing is that when there was more stress, whether it was perceived or actual stress, there was more metabolic disease, more endocrine disease, and also more autism and more endocrine problems. But in addition, what they found was that when there was more actual stress, hundreds of genes changed expression. Hundreds of genes change expression when women were under more stress as opposed to less stress. And the genes that were altered were genes that coded for things like immunoglobulins and glucocorticoids. So you know now that the immune system of their children is not going to be the same. And they actually found with it, because they were studying the children as well, of course, they're studying the children, that these changes went on for years. It's not something that just happened, that they just noticed when they were very, very young, but they were checking them later, and these changes, these epigenetic changes, seem to be persisting. So the way they're going to fight infection, the way they're going to deal with stress is going to be different. And when I think about people getting pregnant now, for example, there is a lot of social stress now. There's actual stress. It's harder to get products. It's harder to get fresh food. There are a lot of social stresses going on now during the pandemic. So I feel that this is the perfect time to prepare for a pregnancy. I don't really recommend that this is the best time necessarily to actually be pregnant, because I think things are hard. In a lot of states now, the numbers are rising. That means it's difficult to get in to see doctors. Everything is a little more difficult, but this is the perfect time to prepare, to learn how to eat properly so that you can feed your family a whole plant food diet and feel really good. This is the time to get all of your micronutrients up so that we have high levels of everything, so you can be giving your baby the best food possible in your milk. Clear out the toxins. Babies come out with glyphosate in the umbilical cords. Glyphosate.
I know.
In the umbilical cord. So they're already pre-poisoned. when they're born. So it's very important to take this time and learn how to eat a whole plant food diet without the extra salt, oil, and sugar. Slim down so you can give your baby the best start in life.
If you think about your genes, there's two types of genes that you have in your body. One are the ones that are expressed, that you have blonde hair, blue eyes, those are fixed. We can't change those, at least now. We can't change those. But the other, like 95% of your genes in your body are like committees. And whether they get turned on or not depends upon you and the environmental factors that you are being exposed to. So that is going to have a huge impact. So that's one of the things that we stress in our programs. We want to get your body cleaned out from the toxins that you've been exposed to for most of your life, and how to move forward to navigate your way through this lifestyle with dealing with the minimum amount of toxins that you are being exposed to. You can't get away from it because our whole planet is toxic. So learning how to deal with it within your own environment. I can't change what's going on outside, but I can change what's going on in my home and in my own personal environment, my own personal space. So I can do that. But when you start to change these factors that is going on, it's going to change the expression of your genes. And they've shown how you can turn genes on and off. So, oh my God, breast cancer runs in my family. My mother got it, my grandmother had it, my aunt had it, my sister had it. That means I'm going to get it. Not necessarily. You may have the genes, but whether they get turned on or not depends upon what you are doing yourself within your environment, the food, the drink, the exercise.
There've been some others. That was wonderful. Yes, there've been some other studies that I would talk about, and we know now how a lot of this gene expression actually takes place with our DNA, and it has to do with adding side chains to the DNA. These methyl groups, for example, maybe even carboxyl groups, but we add you would know a CH3, right? And what's interesting, they've even looked at sperm, and they've looked at certain genes in the DNA of sperm. And depending on where the CH3 is placed, where the methyl group is placed, where the DNA is methylated, can affect either turning it on or turning it off. So for example, there's a promoter region in front of the gene. And when there's a methyl group in the promoter region, it's turned off, interestingly. Mm-hmm. And when the methyl group is in the middle of the gene, it's turned on. So that's interesting. They know that already. The other way that genes can have altered expression is by something called histone modification. So the DNA is wrapped around these very large molecules called histones. And that you can just imagine like spools of thread, because you don't want to keep the DNA from unraveling, right? So the histones can be modified to show certain genes that can be transcribed, or they can be wrapped up and hidden so they're not transcribed. I wanted to talk about Dr. Ornish's work because it also is another example of how diet and lifestyle can affect gene expression. Right. So after Dr. Ornish published his lifestyle heart trial in 1989 or 1990 in the Lancet, and proved that heart disease, our number one killer, could be reversed with a healthy plant-based diet and other lifestyle choices, like he had people exercise for 30 minutes of walking 6 days a week. He had them do an hour of stress reduction, meditation, or yoga, and he had a support group 1 hour a week. So that was, and along with the plant-based diet. Then he turned his attention to prostate cancer, early prostate cancer, and he did a couple of studies with this. So one study was a randomized controlled study where he had some people following their doctor's orders, and some, because they were able to be just followed. They did not need treatment at the time. And others were going to be on his plant-based diet, very low fat, 10% vegan diet, the exercise, the stress reduction, and the support group. And he found that after a year, the tumors in the group that was being treated this way actually shrunk. The PSAs went down, and the exact opposite happened in the other group. Actually, some of the other group actually needed treatment. Like 6 out of the of those groups actually needed either surgery or radiation. So, but then he did another study which was amazing after that. So he took 30 people with early stage prostate cancer, and he followed them. He actually took their DNA and looked at gene expression, and then he followed them for 3 months on their diet and lifestyle changes, and he found that over 500 genes changed expression when in this group. So, and they were their own control.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so 453 genes that would promote cancer, like the RAS, the RAS oncogene, were downregulated, and 48 genes that protected against cancer, like the natural killer cells, for example. So they were upregulated. So over 500 genes changed expression, and not over years. I mean, it was 3 months. It was 3 months. So that's quite amazing. And we just know that things like soy, for example, that the way soy works, one of the ways that soy works to protect against breast cancer is that it upregulates the genes that code for DNA repair. You know, the BRCA genes that people can have defects in, and that would make them more likely to have breast cancer. Well, that BRCA gene is the gene that codes for DNA repair. Because your DNA is being assaulted all the time by all of these toxins, right, in our environment. So the genes for DNA repair are extremely important, and that's one of the things that soy does, is it upregulates the BRCA gene. So even if you have a mutation in that, you're going to do better if you have soy, somebody, with just more things about how foods themselves can act in an epigenetic way to turn on genes and help upregulate things that are important for us.
Epigenetics, huge new frontier, new study. And this is what we're trying to help you, is to change your genes before you get pregnant, but also if you're having trouble conceiving, we can help especially before you go down that in vitro fertilization hole, because, oh my gosh, that's like $20,000 plus,
30,
right? And a lot of it is not covered by insurance. So, before you go down that path, check out the Pregnancy Advantage program, because it's going to be the advantage you're looking for. And so we want to give you free the top 3 things to help your body get pregnant ready. You can go to pregnantready.net, pregnantready.com. Either one works just fine. And we want to share those 3 major tips with you, what we think are the best 3 of our entire program. So anyway, thank you for joining us today, Dr. Shapiro. I always learn so much from you, always, truly.
Thank you. I learned a lot from you too, like the 1,4-dioxane?
Yeah, 1,4-dioxane, yep.
I think I might have misspoken. I just wanted to clarify, because I always think about these things later. Back in the ice storm study, when women had, and this is important, when you think about what your neighbors have and what your family members have and what you're noticing in the news, but when women had more stress, either perceived or actual stress, there was more autism in their offspring, more metabolic disease, and more like things like diabetes, and more autoimmune disease. So all of those were important. And I think I'm certainly noticing more people complaining of autoimmune disease also. So stress is important. And I didn't know that when I was we didn't know it. And I graduated medical school in 1989. So we didn't really know about this at all. We didn't know about epigenetics until the late 90s. And I certainly didn't know about the effects of stress as I do now. So I apologize to all the patients who I might have.
That's why we're trying to make up.
Decided. So in this program, that's what's amazing about this program. It's not just about food. I mean, anyone can tell you what to eat and tell you what nutrients you need, and the iodine and the choline and blah, blah, blah. But we really take a more comprehensive look at all of this. And we sort of working with Dr. Ornish's program too, thinking about the stress and the exercise, right? It's all part of it. We want you to sleep well, all of it, and manage your stress, because it is all important.
Well, they don't call it labor for nothing. Just saying. Because been there, done that, and wow. And I really wish I had this program, because I had so many questions and I didn't have anybody to turn to. My children were born in Colombia, in Bogota. And so I was overseas working at private American schools, and I just didn't have anybody to turn to. My mother was in a very expensive phone call away, and, I didn't have any friends or family to guide me through this. So, I really wish I had access to a program like this to help me to change, because I now know, like, a lot of the mistakes that I made in raising my children and, going through pregnancy, I totally would have done it different. Oh my gosh, knowing what I know now. So I wish I had this program. So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this, is to help women. I mean, that's what it is. We're 2 women. We want to help women. So,
right.
All right.
And I want to make the next generation healthier. I really, really, really want the next generation, because we are going to be facing some monumental problems. We're already facing them, and we're not doing the best job at it, but we're facing them. But the next generation also is going to have to be able to think clearly and make the changes that need to happen. So if you could be raising kids that are already eating and thriving on a plant-based diet. Just see what the advantage would be, because that's the future. Nobody's going to be able to grow up in the future, 30 years from now, eating the way I ate when I was a child, right?
Right.
You're not going to be able to cook Spam. You're not going to be living on Spam and bologna and all that stuff. It's not possible. It's not sustainable. So get started early and learn how to feed your children. And this program is going to lead into the program getting us through pregnancy and getting us through toddlerhood. So we're going to help you all along the way, and with a support group and with a private Facebook group. And we're going to be with you, sort of holding your hand,
guiding you along.
Yes.
So, well, Dr. Deborah, I will see you next week at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you have questions, send us ahead of time. Please, you can message us on Facebook, or through the Pregnancy Advantage Facebook page. Do like the page, and you'll be notified when we go live. So, all right, we'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Jean. Take care. Bye, everyone.